but we'll pretend.
Okay, well, we're going live.
Dakota's doing all the hard work tonight.
This is Ward 5, right? Okay.
You got it live.
This is
Okay. Yep.
Ward 5. So.
All right, and
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 317. That's also the area code for Newcastle when I was growing up. You know that? It's big 765 now, but back in the 90s, this was the 317 out here. East Central Indiana's favorite podcast, Jeremiah Morrill. Today I'm joined by alternate video producer, audio engineer,
original.
button presser, OG Christopher Guffey Staten, producer.
Yes.
Is Guffey the middle name now?
No, he
No
died
hyphen.
legally. Don't you remember?
There's
talked
no
about this?
hyphen.
But we
No.
just call you Guffey,
Yes.
which we're using a dead man's name.
Yes, you're dead naming me.
And my forever co-host, Mr. Dakota Davis. What are we doing here?
Today's episode is the city council candidates for Newcastle City Council, Ward number 5, Mr. Micah Mattingly and Mark Koger. They are our candidates. Micah is from the Republican Party, and then Mark is from the Democrat Party. Here in town, they're going to be talking to us today about themselves, first of all, their backgrounds and why they want to run for office. Then we're going to talk about economic growth, infrastructure, community engagement, and transparency. And then at the very end of the show, we're going to be asking them if they had the royal scepter and the crown for the day and could make any rule they wanted for the city of Newcastle or take away a rule, what it would be. So if you want to hear that, make sure you stick around until the very end of the show.
The show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you, other times we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you'll always learn something new. We just did 25 minutes on Patreon. We learned how incredibly lucky and yet unlucky I am at the same time. And Dakota is now a Ford man.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeremiah, I've been driving a Ford since 2017 every day, so, just not my own personal money pays for it.
So if you join the Patreon at any level, you get to know exactly what we heard, what we did. It's video conferenced in. Is it a Skype, a Zoom? What would you call it?
We'll call it live.
It's a live stream.
It's a live stream.
In the super special Facebook group.
That's right. Patreon.com/BossHogOfLiberty is where you can go to support the show on a monthly level monetarily. That is starting out at $5 a month, and it goes all the way to $50 a month. We don't care which one you pick, but it does pay the bills for the studio, make sure the lights come on every week, and the internet is paid for, and our landlords get paid on time. And we really appreciate all the support over there. We give you access every week to the show notes ahead of time, so you get to follow along with the episode. You know what questions are going to be asked. If we have done research for a show, not really applicable to these shows, but we put in links so that you can see where the sources come from, all of that good stuff. You get access to, like Jeremiah said, the Facebook group that is exclusive for those folks, and then you also get 20 minutes of bonus content every week with our guests. So it's a lot of perks, and starting out at $5 a month. If you sign up at $50 a month, you get a shout-out at the front of every episode and a plug. Those folks are Miss Christy Avery from all the way in Fort Wayne, Indiana, our favorite Norwex dealer. Mr. Jonathan Phillips, who was on the show last week, our favorite car dealer in the continental United States. And then Mr. Anthony Meyer, who is the trucker that is keeping America going. And we appreciate him very much and all of his service.
Special thanks for supporting the candidate series as always. Weiland's Flowers and Slick Pickle Sanitation have once again stepped up, and they are the corporate sponsor of the Boss Hog of Liberty through the candidate series. Dakota put it on his finest camouflage today because of the corporate nature of this program.
Yes. My finest attire. Best you'll find me in, and the cowboy boots.
All right. That's enough stalling. Dakota, why don't you introduce us to our candidates, and let's get to know them.
All right. Let's start off with you, Micah, because this is your first time on the show, so we want to hear from you For sure. Start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, education, work experience, stuff like that.
Sure. As you said, my name is Micah Mattingly. I've lived here in Newcastle going on 3 years. I own and operate M&M Painting. It's a painting business here in Newcastle. My wife is a teacher at a local school system. I've got 4 kids, ranging from a 17-year-old teenage daughter to a 7-year-old daughter. And so my background, I come from a very conservative family, and we've worked a lot in community service and community aspects. I was an outreach director for a nonprofit for going on 7 to 8 years, where we worked with feeding the homeless, working with the less fortunate in the community, creating a liaison between the nonprofit and those that are in need. My education is I went to Indiana University. Although I am a University of Kentucky Wildcat fan, unfortunately I did graduate and go to IU, so I am a Kentucky fan, so that's very weird. But outside of my education, that's where I went to school, was IU, and I've grown up in southern Indiana, Clark County. That's where I'm born and raised. And
That
lived
explains
there.
the UK nature.
Yes, sir. Right there on the border. They called it Kentuckyana, basically. Southern Indiana, Kentuckyana. So we were basically part of Kentucky. So whenever people ask, I basically just tell them almost Kentucky at this point.
Yeah.
But it was born and raised. And so here I moved to Newcastle with my family and started painting and started attending city council meetings, and decided that it was something that I saw that there was a need for representation for the younger families and the younger aspects of their lives, so decided to start running and get involved.
What brought you to Newcastle?
I come from a blended family, and so I wanted to move closer to be closer to my 2 older children.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, sir. They attend Newcastle High School, so I wanted to be closer. Besides every other weekend.
Sweet.
All right, Mark, remind us your background, your history. Let's get to know you again.
Lifelong resident. Grew up here. Graduated in 1983 from the high school. I'm old, 58 years old. My wife Kim is a manager for Momentum Textiles, which used to be DL Couch Wall Covering. So she's been there for 23 years. I work at a pharmacy. I've been in pharmacy for 26 years now. I worked at a local pharmacy here in town for 23 years, and made a move 4 years ago and went to work at Anderson Community Hospital, in the hospital over there, and have been there for 4 years. I was in law enforcement to start my career. I graduated from the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy in 1990. Prior to that, I went to Vincennes University and graduated there with an associate degree in law enforcement. The only time I was away from town, I have lived in my ward for my whole life. I grew up on Rex Court, which is in Ward 5. My parents still live there, same house. I've lived in my house for 26 years. So I'm vested. I've been on council now. It'll be 15 years in November. I took over. There were 5 of us that put our name in to take over when Louise Pierce passed away. And, a lot of people get involved in politics for different reasons. I mean, like Micah just gave why he wants to get involved. And mine was, I just had such an admiration for Louise of how she conducted herself on council. I just wanted to carry that on, and I knew her and her husband Les really well. And we were picked by the head of the Democrat Party at the time, just what any party would do at that time. So I was chosen, served 2 years of her term out, and then ran for re-election and won 3 times. And that's where I'm at now.
All right. So for those in the audience, and obviously this is the third week where we've done the council show, so I know the audience is starting to get used to the questions here. They're not new, but for Mark, what impact does the council have with economic growth and small business involvement, and how can you, from the council position, help grow the community?
We invest $85,000. Well, it's $92,000 a year we give to the EDC. That helps them pay employees and whatever other aspects they have. We have done that ever since I've been on council. The county does it also. It's supposed to be a 50-50 split, but the county council, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years span did not donate anything to the EDC because they didn't have the money to donate. Not really donate, to give to. Contribute to. So that's really our main focus of city council is the money that they give. We have representation on that board. I served as a board member for my 8 years as I was council president. I was on the EDC board. EDC meets one Thursday a month. I went to almost every meeting, maybe missed 2 or 3 in that span. So I learned a lot about EDC, of how it works, and the how they recruit businesses to town. We as city council, you have very, very, very little involvement in that. It's the EDC, it's the landowners, and it's the mayor. When somebody comes to town, they want to put a business, and I'll just use Boar's Head as an example. They cared about 2 things. They cared about how much water they can get and what's the sewer capacity. That is all they cared about. And we, city council, I mean, we can't make that happen. So the mayor, he put a plan in place and did it. They increased the sewer lines and the water lines out there. They got it done. But that's how, when you get back to the question of the EDC, that's how it works. I mean, the only time we have a say is if an ordinance or a resolution is brought in front of us, or if we create one. And when it comes to economic development, we just, we'll do anything we can to retain, just to get business, but we do a lot to retain business also. And we have, I don't know what I'm trying to say. The aspect of when the Crown comes and they said, hey, we need, $10,000 in abatement. That's economic development. So, we have an abatement board. We go around and we check to make sure that they're holding up their end of the bargain. Grady did that a few years ago. They did equipment, $10 million or $15 million worth of equipment. So, Lynn Purdue's head of that, and he'll take his group around and they'll check and make sure. Hey, have you hired your 150 employees that you said you were going to hire? Can you show us the machines that you bought? It's so the abatement's another factor.
And when they're doing an abatement, they're essentially reducing their tax burden.
Yeah, and you catch a lot of heat on council if you give an abatement. Well, we're losing tax dollars. Well, okay, but look at the money you're getting coming in from your employees working there that are paying your Lowit taxes and your other taxes that are coming in every time. So it's a give and take.
All right. So, Michael, let's hear from you on the small business and how you view the council and the ability, if you were to join the city council, on the ability to help economic growth in the city.
I'm with Mark. I agree. The city council is limited on certain aspects as far as economic development, but it does play a certain role. It can play those roles by making sure that when a business is deciding to move into Newcastle or open up in Newcastle, that they have everything they need, whether it's supporting them, as he said, with the abatements, or making sure that any requirements that they might need as a company moving into the area that we offer them. But it's also crucial by making sure that there's not red tape that they have to jump through, that it's very seamless in deciding, hey, Newcastle's where we want to plant our flag, and we're going to start our business there and kind of just get out of their way, make sure that they have what they need. As he said, the EDC is crucial. I mean, if without the EDC, I'm not sure we would have probably half of the businesses in the places that we have here in town. So that's very crucial to make sure that they have what they need. But economic development, though, and the growth of those small businesses, we can do B-Wrap that works downtown for the exterior of buildings and the facade. We can figure out some type of programs that help new businesses come into Newcastle and get off the ground, whether it's being kind of like a test kitchen like what they have up in the Fishers and Noblesville area. That would be, I think that would be something that would benefit here in Newcastle for sure. But it's, for me, in my mind, it's just staying out of the way of the new businesses and the EDC and making sure that they have what what they need, and just staying out of the way and giving them the tools so they can be successful in choosing Newcastle.
All right, so let's move on here to infrastructure and development. We can start with you, Micah, on this one. The city of Newcastle, we've talked a lot with the city council candidates about especially the improvements to, or the rebuilding, I guess we should say, of State Road 3 that's going through Newcastle, which is the main thoroughfare north and south in the city. We've talked a lot about that infrastructure development that's going on. Then we've also heard about stormwater, sewer, and all of those sides of the infrastructure game. Do you have any thoughts on what needs to be done as far as infrastructure goes, as far as prioritizing things, and also just how we can maintain the character that Newcastle has as infrastructure continues to develop?
Yeah, I think infrastructure and economic growth are tied together, because we can't attract new businesses if that infrastructure is not there. From what I understand, from some city workers have already gone on record as saying they were concerned about the new subdivision being built by the YMCA and the burden that that's going to take on the infrastructure itself already. So finding what those holes are within the infrastructure and plugging them temporarily until we can figure out, we're not going to be able to completely build an entire brand new infrastructure. That's going to take millions and millions of dollars. It's going to come from grants, and it's going to have to come with
And decades of work.
So we have to figure out what we can temporarily fix. I know Aaron Dickens made the comment that it's Frankenstein together. Unfortunately, it's going to have to kind of stay that way until we can figure out a long-term solution. But temporarily, we have to create that foundation, or that economic growth is not going to be there.
Some of that growth is going to come from new developments, though, right?
Absolutely.
Once you start building new, $300,000 homes is what's going in by the Y. That's gonna help.
Of walking, right? Because then how much growth what those are. A little there. I don't think it would hurt to have. Are you referring to some type of bus route or some type of something that comes into town, leaving out of town? I don't think that would hurt. I'm not sure how much. I know as a business owner, it was very weird to me when I first moved up here and learning the logistics of everything and trying to hire someone to work. I'd interview people and talk to people that lived in Greenfield and Muncie or even Anderson. And for whatever reason, they did not want to drive to Newcastle, because obviously there was probably not better, but there was more choices for them around there. They didn't have to drive here. But we've got people in Newcastle that's willing to drive those distances because they're limited on the jobs as well. So if we offered some type of transit or bus system that helped our workers get to and fro to work at the moment as an entry level into that public transportation, that I can see the benefit of having something like that available to our employees.
You know, the EDC just did a study about a year ago about the number of workers leaving and the number of workers coming in to the county.
and
We have
what
a
was
lot
it
more
more
leaving.
leaving than
It's amazing. It's about equal. It
Oh,
really
really?
is about equal, but it's amazing of how many people leave. But it's amazing how many people come here to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
That's a
Well,
me.
Boar's Head and Crown both, and
Well,
Draper and the hospital.
hospital,
There's a
yeah.
lot of folks that
school
come in from a
system.
distance.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't
I-
think about things like that until you hear from an EDC director.
Yeah.
of-
Yeah, I guess I hadn't.
I commute
Yeah.
with the same people to Muncie every day I go. It's the same carpool.
Yeah.
Seven something in the morning, heading to Delaware
Yes.
County.
Yep.
As Chris comes down from
Yep.
Delaware County to Henry
As Jared
County.
goes out, my wife and I come in.
So, Mark, you need an opportunity to comment on the infrastructure. And I know I saw you last night at Bundy Auditorium at the big NDOT presentation.
It was eye opening. Even though it was brief, it was eye opening. Our infrastructure is about as sound as it's going to be. Long term control obviously played a part of that. We're $25 million plus in debt for a long term control plan that the state and federal government made us do.
That's the stormwater.
Stormwater separation. And I made the comment.
That's why my
I
sewer
made-
bills tripled since I bought my house in 2013.
It's not great. But I made the comment probably 12 years ago at a city council meeting that all this is going to do is bankrupt a city our size. It's not our insurance deficit that everybody wants to keep talking about. It's the long-term control plan that is going to bankrupt a city our size until the state or the federal government starts handing some money to us. And when I say us, cities our size, our class 3 cities, we're just going to keep paying and we were on a monthly basis by not starting that long
For
term
polluting the Big Blue River.
Well, yes, that's what. But you can talk about polluting Big Blue River, but if you go behind our sewer plant right now, there's a little stream of water coming out. It's crystal clear that goes in that stream, and it's been that way. And every city and town has water main breaks. Everybody has, sewer problems. I mean, it's a headache, but it is what it is. But I can. Yeah, he. It's on the books. I'm sure Mike, I'm sure Clay's, they've all looked at it of how bad it is and how much we pay every year, every 6 months we pay on this. So that's our infrastructure, and our roads are pretty good shape. I mean, you don't drive down too many bad roads in Newcastle. I mean, even a few alleys that aren't the greatest.
In the last 4 years, there's been a lot of improvements on the main thoroughfares.
And I understand a lot of it is the long-term project paving, but we're spending the community crossing grants and things we've had the last 4 or 5 years dedicated to it. It's been huge.
Do either of you guys have any commentary on the State Road 3 NDOT project?
Real quick, Ken Durham spoke up last night. He's the pastor at the First Baptist Church. He said the most common sense thing that was said last night in 2 minutes. They want to compare Newcastle to Greenfield. They want to compare 9 to 3 in that stretch. You can't do it for one reason. He said it, access roads. Think about that. You go from Home Depot and Greenfield down through to Walmart. You can take all those access roads to get there. We have none.
Particularly on the east side of the road.
So if you're coming to Cherry, you're going south on 3, or north on 3. You pass Cherry Street. You cannot make a left-hand turn off of State Road 3 until you get to Indiana Avenue. So you can't pull into the First Baptist Church, Culver's, Pizza Hut,
Ace Hardware.
Ace Hardware. So if you're going north or if you're going south, you can't pull in, which Rolls Bowl, the owner of Rolls Bowl is there. You can't pull into Rolls Bowl. You can't pull into the bank. You can't pull into Wendy's. You can't pull into Long John Silver's.
Now, a lot of those restaurants have access off of Indiana.
They do, but
right.
But
I don't know if that's a city road that's back there, or if that's a private road, or what that is that they have access.
Visitors, how many out of towners are going to know that?
They won't know that. Yeah.
There was really great questions brought up last night, and I hope that the state takes that into consideration. Yes, we've begged for sidewalks, and we've got them. But boy, that access road was something I never thought about till Ken said that last night.
And part of the dividing through the middle, that middle.
You're doing fine. We'll adjust for you.
I appreciate it. That middle median there.
I said, what are we going to do? We can't make a U-turn here.
Yeah.
Go down.
And I had some concerns as well. Two of our biggest draws or biggest community items that we have is we have one of the largest RV dealerships in the state of Indiana, and they have really long campers being delivered and picked up in a state park that's full every weekend. So those turn lanes better be long enough to accommodate trucks and trailers coming in and out. I also noted to them that all of those restaurants have delivery trucks that are probably coming from the south. So Culver's, Pizza Hut, Domino's all have food delivery trucks that need to have some sort of access in. And if you don't have a 180 somewhere for those trucks to turn, you're setting yourself up for trouble. And the third, probably the biggest item that I had was that the Henry County Saddle Club, which is $7 million in economic impact for the community. 50,000 people come and visit them a year with trucks and trailers. Better be accommodating to them as they come to town and visit, and those guys try to spend money in our community. That's a huge part of our food and beverage money that we get as a community.
Tremendous.
Is the people that go to Memorial Park and the Saddle Club. So anyway, those are the comments I shared with NDOT. I don't know what's going to come of it, but
there were a lot of good questions last night, and it was brief. It was to the point that.
You think NDOT is in the stages of they're willing to listen to feedback, or are their mind is their mind already
last
made
night
up?
was for that,
right?
And there's a public comment period.
October
if you go
26th.
If you go the drawings and all the plans that they have, and then there's an email address there where you can make your comments until October 26th.
And we need to. Everybody needs
So then
to.
I guess that's crucial, right? It's a call to arms that we need to start making.
Absolutely.
As candidates and as councilmen, we need to start making sure that people are going and making their voice heard on these issues.
Every citizen needs to, and the business owners even more. But they're there.
Yeah.
Business owners are. There was a great layout there last night, and when you kind of see it like that, and see how it's going to work, it really opens your eyes a lot more than just hearing about it or listening to it or how you're explaining it. But boy, when you see it, like, how am I going to make this turn? How am I going to do this?
Well, and what NDOT realized, I was standing there talking after the fact, they were like, all of the development, all the outlots that First Baptist Church has sold off in the last 4 or 5 years are not in the photos.
Well, and Ken Durham said.
They said, hey, in the last 5 years, we sold all these properties. And NDOT said, well, our pictures from the sky only update every 5 years, so those weren't here.
Well,
So in their details, they don't have them accounted for.
one was the BMV.
Yeah. The state dropped a new BMV right
Sure.
inside of that
Just skip
space.
that altogether.
Sure
Yeah, I
was.
forgot about the B&B.
Yeah. All right.
Do you have anything else to add on infrastructure, Micah?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, let's talk about community engagement and transparency. So, yeah, as we've talked about this, I think I always think about Aaron Dickin on social media does a really good job of trying to keep people up to date. I think that he's a good example of people using social media, but then there's also other ways that we can try to keep community members engaged. So, Micah, how do you intend to keep residents and especially your constituents involved in your decision-making process?
One of the promises that I've made on my campaign for city council has been that I won't vote on any ordinances or any issues without first knocking or calling on some of the citizens within the wards that I'll be 5, 6, or 10, knocking on their door or picking up the phone and calling them and asking for their input. One thing that I realized when starting out on this is it's not my hopes, it's not my wishes, it's not my dreams. We're the voice of the citizens of our ward. We're a representation of our ward. And so if I'm going and trying to enact my own agenda or something that I want to get done and I'm not listening to those people, I'm doing them a disservice. So I wholeheartedly believe that knocking on their doors and speaking with them or just picking up the phone or an email, getting their input, making sure that we're enacting what they want is an important part of being a civil servant for sure.
So on the transparency front, I know watching your campaign page, you've been vocal about the live streaming in the process, and you have some plans around that related to council meetings in the live stream.
Yeah. So, and I want to make sure to set the record straight. I know you guys are friends with Aaron Dickens, but when I first brought that to attention, that certainly was not to cast stones or to kind of make him feel bad or raise any concern that he's doing something, because he's doing something that none of the other councilmen are doing. He's showing up early. He's doing what he needs to do. He's doing what he's supposed to do. What I hear is when he sat here on one of the episodes that he was here, he said that he had a vision of how it should go. I think he even consulted maybe with someone or you guys of what he needed. He asked for it, and then he did not get what exactly that he had asked for. And then we have another candidate, a city councilman that was here a couple weeks later. He says, you bring that issue up, and he says, well, whatever Aaron wants, Aaron gets. Whatever Aaron needs, we'll get it to him. Well, it sounds like there's a disconnect somewhere in there that he's not getting what he needs. So for me, I don't believe paying someone is the answer. I believe if Aaron can do that job, he's created a book and a binder that shows everybody a step-by-step on doing that. I believe that the other councilmen can step up and figure that out as well. I believe that's something they can figure out, and that's just one less. I think they said $50 a meeting. I get it. It's, what, $1,200 maybe a year? I know that's pennies compared to what's in the budget, but that little bit here and a little bit there, cutting back on cost, it just saves overall. And I believe we can tap into, I think he even kind of mentioned it, tapping into the media with the school. We can touch base with Ivy Tech. We can bring in interns, or we can bring in somebody to do it if we need to. Worst case scenario, we have the councilman step up and learn how to run the media and save that money instead of just spending that extra money.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know we used to have the system that the city council is running with right now. It's pretty simple and pretty easy to use, user-friendly.
When it works.
When it works.
Yeah, I mean, the quality is fine. The audio's, when, like you said, when it's working, it's fine. And Aaron's doing a great job, but I mean, he's got a family, he's got kids,
Right.
He's got responsibilities, and he's on other. He doesn't have to be saddled with that responsibility when there's other people that can step up and help him.
Yeah, and there's a reason that it's the system we used to have, right? And we have our newer system, which is still not world class or perfect by any means. But the thing is, like, once you step out of the bounds of the system that the council is using now,
Gets
things
exponentially more
get quite a
complicated.
bit more complicated. Like I had to send Chris a video today just explaining how to make one simple change that we made.
Yeah, you went and
not to
mention
mention the 50 other steps.
Gotta learn.
So Mark,
that, I guess that's kind of my concern is like if they stick with the Mevo system that they have right now, yes, I agree with you. Just have other people figure it out, because it's easy. But if the reliability of the system starts becoming an issue, when they need to start upgrading equipment and looking into better, more reliable things, it's going to fly over the heads of most people.
Sure. And
So
when we get to that
cross
crossroad,
that
then
bridge when you get
absolutely
there, right?
100%. Then even if it's over the head, then by all means, let's figure it out. But there's got to be some student at Ivy Tech or some high school student that's their bread and butter is the media and working with the electronics and streaming. And
Right.
most
At least
kids know
a
how to
good
stream
resume
and do
builder,
YouTube
right?
stuff, so they can figure out how to offer them, not community service, but community hours of volunteering and also getting the benefit of learning how a city works.
Yeah, it's worth a shot at least, I guess.
Mark, tell us your views on, I guess, transparency. If you want to weigh in on the streaming conversation and your experiences.
We've come a long way. I mean, and I know it's getting ready to become a law to do that, and that's where we were headed. And Aaron has done. He's the most technology inclined by any
By
stretch.
20 years.
By 20 years. We could learn it and with no problem. We could do it. But when you got to remember, we went through almost 2 years of Zoom half the time, so that was all live. I mean, everybody was,
Everybody jumped forward into the Zoom era.
Anybody could have came into our Zoom meetings. We all figured that out.
The county learned how to not violate open door rules because of Zoom meetings.
Because of Zoom, yes.
We sped ourselves up many generations.
Yes,
on
we
that
did.
front.
And that was tough. I mean, people don't realize how tough those Zooms were of communication, and but we did it, and it was real tough.
Yeah,
But,
they suck.
It did.
Not good.
It was terrible.
So is there anything? I guess what's your process if you have an ordinance come to you, and do you view your role as, hey, the council, the people of the ward have elected you, and your view is what you do? It's a representative democracy, and Mark Koger does what Mark's going to do, or do you find yourself polling people? How do you arrive at that?
Most ordinances and resolutions that come before us, they don't want to be burdened by something like that because they're so small, or it's a change of an existing ordinance or resolution. But
no crossbows across driveways.
No, but when you're dealing with major money of like the bond for Garner Street, 2010. So it's been on a year. I did not realize how big of that issue that was to put Garner Street in. I know Micah probably doesn't know anything about this, but Garner Street was put in from State Road 3 to 14th Street to make a direct route to the hospital.
Because at the time, the route had been eliminated
Yes.
when the state hospital went away and the
Yes.
prison was put in.
Right.
So that you would go from US 36 all the way to downtown Newcastle to get
all the way to
access
Broad
to
Street.
yeah.
So you're talking
Gotcha.
10 minutes of life saving of the ambulance taking lives. So that's how it was presented to me. And I did not contact constituents, and I probably should have. But in all honesty, that was probably the worst vote I ever had on city council, by far, is to bond a street. That was, I mean, when I look back on that, it's paid for. And it's been good, don't get me wrong, but when the only thing presented to us was, okay, it could save a life, it's 10 minutes, and I just didn't put enough effort into it to, go to my constituents and ask people in the public of what they thought. I was getting feedback from only the EMS, only the hospital, but, probably shouldn't have bonded that. We probably should have found another way to pay for that than to bond it.
That's the kind of thing today you'd try to use community crossings for.
We would have to.
Or find an
Yes.
end-up fund, something.
But you got to consider when in 2010, 2011, city was bringing in $4.5 million more than we're bringing in right now. So put that in your own
That's crazy.
budget at home and see how
where's
that
that
works
gone?
out for you.
Tell us what's driven that revenue down? The lack of manufacturing?
Tax caps. You've heard it. Senate Bill 1 tax cap that the state of Indiana put on us, and they're never ever going to relinquish that. It is destroying us. It's destroying our schools. It's destroying our cities and towns. If you ask a legislator right now, don't care if he's probably a Republican in the state of Indiana. If you ask them, what can we do to get money for our city or town? They'll tell you, user fees, and max your tax levy. We can't tax anybody anymore on their property. They're maxed.
State Road 38 can become a toll road.
No, you got to toll Garner Street to pay for it, Mark.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that I've had a conversation with the highway superintendent. Garner Street becomes a county road once you get to a certain point. For a
Not
little bit
anymore.
out towards State Road 3.
The only thing is the bridge.
Right. So the bridge is the big ticket item that
Big
needs
ticket
replaced.
item. Oh, yeah.
It's in deep trouble.
Yeah, it is.
So it's going to need replaced.
And you know how long it took him to fix the 38 bridge?
Yeah.
There were some acts of Buick in that.
Acts of Buick.
So in my mind, this is where I know that I'm still new, right? I'm still drinking from a faucet, learning. I'm sitting here learning some things from you, Mark, and I don't know everything, and I'm sure you didn't know everything until you were in
No
office.
way.
But in my mind and rationalizing this thing, that's where it's like that goes back to the streaming of the council meetings. If that's $1,200, I get it, but that's $1,200 that can be applied to something else that needs it. That's $1,200 that can go elsewhere. I get it. Money's fungible. Things can be moved around and different things. But just in my newbie mind of looking at city council, it's why spend this money unnecessarily when we're needing these things taken care of and they can be applied to something else. They might not add up to the whole bill, but little small things here and there might add up to that whole bill.
I think and I see your point. And I think also where I see you coming from is just a matter of the principle of spending money when we just talked about how much debt that the city has incurred because of the stormwater sewage separation. And so it's just the principle of we're going to spend some more money here and there, and the worry of eventually, hey, all these things are going to catch up, and we're going to be going,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to have to start cutting things, and then you've got a 18-year-old that's used to getting $50, and you got to go, you want to do it for free?
Right.
You know?
So my concern, and I'll, before we move on, but I've done a lot of volunteer work with youth organizations. I was 16, 17 years with 4-H and junior leaders, and a lot of times other groups would be like, "Hey, can the junior leaders help out with this?" They're kind of tapped out as it goes. But if you say, "Hey, I want to have a college student do it," you could have a really awesome college student that you have for 6 months or a year, and then they move on to the next thing or they're gone. Yeah.
Or we bring Chris
Have
Guffey down.
you ever tried having a volunteer podcast producer?
He's dead. Chris Guffey died legally.
Chris Staten
Chris
to
Guff,
you.
Chris Staten and Zach Bertram are unicorns
That
to
is-
find them.
The city of Newcastle could not afford Chris Staten to travel to the city of Newcastle.
Be more than 50.
Be more than
bucks.
$1,200 a year.
Be a little bit, yeah.
You'd have to cover that $13,000 gambling problem.
That's Patreon.
Oh, that's Patreon.
Yeah, that's you got to pay the premium to know that side. That's my glass half empty pessimism side is that Grayson Jolson was here with us and hung out with us last year a bit, and you could find somebody awesome like that for 6 months or a year, but I don't know if you can depend on it long term. That would be my concern.
That's kind of like back to what we were saying with the Mevo system.
Yeah,
Just
I will say that
figure it out.
the county has started live streaming, and I think a lot of the county council and county commissioner candidates, or those that are elected, were very hesitant to do the live streaming, and now you can tell that they actually all watched the other meeting. You watch the council meeting today, and they're talking about watching the commissioners the day before. So I think it creates a record. So $1,200, $5,000, whatever it is that you spend in a year, you're also creating a resource for the other government agencies to be able to go back and look and watch and
And
you
it's
get better
invaluable
information.
to citizens, the live streaming. I mean, that's how this podcast got started, was us showing up to city council and county council meetings with a camera and a microphone. So just because there was no kind of record, if you go, we talked, I think it was last week, about the city's website is not great, and going on and trying to find minutes of the meetings when you live in town, and just being frustrated and going, I'm just going to start going to meetings. And then we took the Mevo to the city council meetings, the county council and commissioners meetings, even the Memorial Park Board meetings. We were there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the Indiana law of requiring a recording of the meeting is great. And it's just, cities are just going to have to figure it out.
Right.
You know?
So tell us, Micah, what would your goals be? Assuming you're elected for the first 4 years, what's the top 2 or 3 items that are your priorities as a city councilman?
So for me, my top priorities are, and walking my ward and talking with them, is in our areas, I definitely see that there's an issue with addiction and mental health. I feel that is very important. That I know there are amazing programs within the community, but sometimes they're not so easy to find or understand where you need to go or who you need to connect with. So for me, it's making sure that we can connect those programs with those that are in need, making sure that those that need the help can find those tools, whether it's when we get the website up and going and it's very easy to be accessible, that we can get all those tools there for the citizens. Outside of that, it's just making sure that the voice of the people is heard, and it's making sure that I'm transparent through the entire process, that we're constantly opening that line of communication, whether it's taking Facebook polls or knocking on doors or whatever it may be, but hearing what they're saying and making sure that we're enacting that on city council. That, and then I know you kind of mentioned it at the beginning, that the whole insurance deficit and all that stuff, that's a mayor thing. I get it, that those are things that they're going to have to kind of try to figure out and get understanding of what's going on. But for me, it's also all those little fringe things. Don't mean to keep harping on it, but all the little fringe things that we spend on that we may not need to spend. Let's at least slow down and maybe take a second look on some of the spending on things that we can start paying off, what we need to pay off, and that we can start applying to certain things. Those are my key issues. It's just making sure that we're accountable to the citizens for our actions, for our votes, and for the money that the tax dollars that we're spending, right? It's not our money, it's not the city's money, and it's not the mayor's money. It's the citizens of Newcastle's money and their tax dollars that we're being held responsible for, making sure it gets used in the correct manner. And so making sure that through that whole step of the process that they're feeling like their money's being used the correct way and their voice is being heard is very important to me in that process.
All right. Mark, 4 years, you get 4 more years. What are the priorities?
Well, we do have to get the insurance paid down, but it is a mayor thing. His budget is his budget or her budget, whatever falls in the class city we are. I spoke out, 2 or 3 years ago and told him he needed to get it under control. We've had some major claims through COVID. It's not an excuse. I'm not trying to make excuses. It is what it is. It's in black and white. There's no hiding it. But the city does have to look at changing some things. They need to, and this isn't a city council person. We don't control what kind of insurance the city gets. That's usually up to the unions. That's usually up to the mayor. It's not a city council person doesn't say, well, we need to talk to this person about insurance. No, that's not our job. It's just not. So they need to look at that. They need to look at the rates they pay, and they need to look at health savings accounts, and there's many options out there that they can do to help get that under control. But getting back to some of my goals is, I don't know if you guys remember or not. I know the podcast probably wasn't in existence, but we started getting riverboat money. I opened the ledger up one time. I'd been on about 2 years and a year and a half, and I opened the ledger up one month and was looking at it, and Jan Lavarnway was the clerk treasurer then, so I'm dating myself again. So there's a thing in there that says riverboat. It said, I forget what it was, 60-some thousand. So I go to Jan's office and what's riverboat? $60-some thousand. She says, oh, they state of Indiana just sends it to us, and we just put it in the general fund, and we can do with it whatever we want, put it wherever we want, spend it however we want.
It's a benefit from having casinos at the time down on the Ohio River, et cetera.
Okay, and then come to find out that, well, if the casino's in your county, you get a heck of a lot more than a county in Henry or Hancock or Wayne. So getting back to this, I went to a couple council people and I said, "Did you know this existed?" No. These are Dickie Hahn, who'd been on 20 years prior to me coming on, and I said, let's separate this. Let's take that away from the mayor of being able to do with what he wants, and let the council have some say of where the $60,000 is going. So we separated that fund. We made a resolution. We separated that fund. It's been separated ever since. The mayor cannot spend it. Jim Small couldn't. Greg York couldn't. We determine how that money's spent, and it comes in front of council on anything that's presented. Well, fast forward a couple more years, and Lowett was passed. We had to have the county vote to get Lowett passed.
Local option income tax.
Local option income tax, which only can be used for emergency services. That's it. Nothing else. We passed I forget what it was, 0.25%, which was about the lowest you could get. We get about $760,000 a year from Lowett right now, and it's based on how many people work in your community. The county gets about $1.8 million a year is what they generate, and they use it for jail maintenance or jail deputy salaries and things like that, which we use ours for whatever. But when that was passed, I made a point. We are going to keep Lowett separate from the general fund. We cannot have this just go in and let a mayor, any mayor, it's not Greg, it's any mayor, spend this money without council approval. We don't have any say through a budget anyway. So the mayors don't vote for this. The council people had to vote for it. County keeps theirs separate. They've done it for years, and that's why they have budget workshops. We don't have that luxury to be able to do that. So this is our budget workshop is through Lowett. We've give raises to police, fire, and EMS through this. Numerous raises. A policeman, when I started, was making $37,000 a year. I mean, they were on welfare.
In 2009.
If they had 3 children, they were on welfare. That's how bad it was. Firemen, police, or a paramedic, for that matter. So we got them all raised up. We got great equipment now. Our police and fire and our EMS have the best equipment of anybody in the state of Indiana, hands down, no questions asked. And that's based on our Lowett. That's based on us council keeping that money separate and being able to buy the best equipment available for our workers.
So you talked about the Lowett side. What about the riverboat money? Where does that get spent?
Riverboat is, and you can, I didn't bring my list with me, but we have a separate, you can pull it up on the city website of where that river, we do, every year we put aside $50,000 for sidewalks. And if you own a resident in Newcastle, if you own a house and you want to redo your sidewalk in front of your house, the city will pay 50% of whatever that cost is. So if it costs you $500 to put a sidewalk in, the city will give you $250 to finish that sidewalk, to an approved contractor through the city. There's 3 of them that have signed up to do it. Anybody can sign up. So it's like that. It's a lot of downtown things. It's we've done a lot with
Is it like
Trojan Lane,
Newcastle Main Street, or city beautification?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
And Main Street's and of course
Approximately how much comes from Riverboat every year?
Well, we get about 70,000, 75,000 a year.
Oh.
But we build it up, and right now there's probably $150,000 in Riverboat Fund. So it's
So keep gambling. This is the story that Mark's telling. Is so
Sounds
keep-
like it.
Can we build a casino on the Big Blue River?
it would be awesome if we
Have
had
a
casino.
John boat out there with 1 slot machine.
I'm just saying, the return of investment. You invest in me to come down to the live stream. I go to the riverboat. The money comes back to you in another way.
Jerry Walden would have his intersection at 103.
The Jerry Walden Memorial Interchange would get built
Yeah,
at State Road 3 and 1.
yeah.
The Blue River Coast Guard would have a boat in the moat to defend.
Yeah. So with that money, that's, and Mike is right. It does. It seems $1,200 doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're doing nickels and dimes, but that's one reason we kept that fund separate. It wasn't to make ourselves look good. It's when somebody comes and needs something that we got it. Early childhood development for Hope Initiative. I mean, I can go on and on of things that we've done over the course of that time to better the city, and that the mayor can't afford to pay out of a budget.
So the big question is, if you are king for the day and you get to change one thing about city government,
Or take it away.
change would be either or, what would Mark Koger do?
I would combine the fire and EMS.
The system. Because right now there's a big controversy around EMS and
There's-
private transport, et cetera.
That would be my main goal. But I'm only a voice. I'm not the mayor. I don't have that power. But that's what I would like to see.
Other communities have done that. Shelbyville, they
They all
operate
do
as
it.
one.
Anderson does it. Muncie does. They all do it.
Yeah.
Yep. It would run a lot smoother. We would get more bang for our buck, and we would have cross-trained personnel. I mean, it's long overdue.
All right. King for the day, Micah. What is your project? What are you changing? What would happen?
So for me, I think young people and the youth of this town are very important. I know that we have the skate park, but that it hits home to a certain amount or a certain style of teenager or young person that's into those types of things. I would love to see something downtown or something by Baker Park that really gave an atmosphere for students. In my hometown, they're doing what they call a teen depot. And it's basically an outdoor area where teens can come. It's free Wi-Fi. It's computers that are accessible, and it's kind of outdoor environment. But it allows them to come and have a safe space for themselves to come and be with one another. For those, we have a skate park and a big art activity center in my hometown, and so there's just certain kids that don't want to partake in those activities. So I would love to see a shift in thinking somehow and realizing that our young people are very important. I know that there is I talked to a couple people that keep mentioning public safety for the young people, and that there's been some outbursts and some actions by young people in the parks with guns and knives and different things. It's just providing a sense of a safe space for them so that we can look out for them and grow them. We live in Newcastle on purpose. This is where we live, and I want to live here. I want to play here. I want to eat here. I want to spend my tax dollars here. I don't want to have to go someplace else for my teenage kids or my children to enjoy activity. So I know we have a great parks department. We have some great facilities, but I believe there's an area of teenagers that we could really focus on and give them that attention that would be beneficial for them.
So help educate me a little bit, because Cameron Grimm mentioned something similar about some sort of a gang issue in Baker Park when he was on with us a couple weeks ago. You said there's a gun and a knife.
I know there were shots fired. The last council meeting, there was an issue where that lady came and she was complaining about the unmarked vehicles being parked in the middle of the street, and it was due to shots fired near the park. I know that my wife personally has gone out there and has found needles and used adult items that are out there, and it's just not that it's not a clean, safe place. Everything happens, and I understand things can happen and all that. But I can show you on my my messenger. There's 2 or 3 people that are specifically asking what are my plans or what are some ideas that I might bring to the table, and it's got me thinking about public safety and their concern. They say to listen to the scanner, and they hear that this young person, and what was it, just 6 months ago out on A Avenue, there was a young person shot someone in the middle of the night. Don't know the details of it. So for me, it hits home with my teenage children that there needs to be a safe space for them. We need to make sure that we're looking out for them, providing. There was at the high school, one of the guidance counselors had told me over dinner, our family was together, that Henry County leads in amongst suicides in all of the counties in the state of Indiana.
When was that? I've never heard of a teen suicide in Henry County.
Not a teen, just I said the suicide in general, not teen, but they said that it was. I'm talking about teens, and then also I brought up the suicide in specific because she was
you said guidance counselor.
Yeah, she's a guidance counselor that gave me that statistic, and so in discussing with her, she had mentioned that she sees a lot of depression and anxiety among these kids, and a lot of things in that. And her hopes and dreams were that the city would begin to provide resources or get in touch with programs that would be offered to young people and to the future voters of Newcastle.
Mark, any comments or thoughts or input on the parks or youth violence and issues that might be surrounding that?
Our park board is second to none. They've done a great job of facilitating their money, even with staying within their budget. But they also just got a bond this last year and created a lot of new things.
I know
they do.
Cameras are coming.
Yeah,
That'd be.
Well, I know the electricity's been ran for it, and I know the company's ready to put them in at any time. Mike Burke would be the one to talk to on that. But also the parks have incorporated all the parks plus the armory. So, they're taking care of that also. And
The armory's getting cameras?
no.
Oh.
But
you're
the
saying
parks
the park board
incorporated
team.
in
Okay,
that.
I got
They're
you.
all under
I
the
got you.
same umbrella.
They do have cameras there, but that was another thing that was sprung on us by Mayor Jim Small. Is he showed up at a council meeting one night and told us we just bought the armory for $1. That was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good price.
You're talking about transparency. Yeah, hey, really, we did. Awesome. What are we gonna do now? So that's been a major headache to try to get around to.
To find a purpose for it.
Find a purpose, and the administration's done a really good job of that.
It's
and
right around Halloween. I've been in that armory basement, and it's probably one of the creepiest places in Henry County.
yeah, it's utilized though. I mean, it is.
I'd love to see the armory used as they talk about the homelessness rise that's happening within our streets.
Yeah, I
On
just read
those
that.
on that winter weather advisory or cold nights, I'd love to see the armory open up as a station.
I know the old YMCA has done that before.
Yeah.
I know they've done that.
That's the Henry
Township.
Township Trustee's office.
Yes, sorry.
The old YMCA.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Where they used to swim naked in 1940.
Look at Mark dating himself.
Just like the Greeks.
I've heard some stories about that pool. I swam in it when I was a youth, but I was born.
Naked?
I was I was born naked. I was born. I was born the same year Mark graduated high school. So my youth is about 20 years after. All right, so let's work our way into final thoughts here. This is where we encourage candidates to ask for money because these yard signs aren't free, billboards aren't free, the door-to-door knocking, the materials aren't free. So you can ask for help for your campaign. I know you've got about a month left before you go, but also to clean anything up. If there's issues we left out, this is your chance to make a pitch. So we'll start with you, Micah.
Yeah, anybody willing to help or make a contribution, please just visit my Facebook page. There's a link to donate there. If you're interested in door knocking and getting to know the residents in wards 5, 6, and 10, definitely leave me a message and someone from my team will reach out. I don't have anything to wrap up, but just to kind of echo, the reason why I got in is because I know Aaron Dickin has a family and he's got young kids. But for me, I would love to just see a wider representation of the younger generation and the young families, blended families that on city council. I believe the way that it's made up now, Aaron's the only one that has little kids that are in the school system. I would love to see more representation, a younger generation of people that are willing to become the next leaders and serve on city council for as long as Mark has and Rex and the rest of them. There's a generation of young people that are coming up that want to be the leaders. We need the guidance. We need the help from those that are here. But I would love to just see more people get involved. Most importantly, I just want to be the voice of the ward, making sure that they're heard and not left out and left behind.
Awesome.
Great.
And you're still doing some door knocking?
Yes, sir.
Volunteer
Absolutely.
opportunities?
Yes, sir. Yep. Just shoot me a message on my campaign page, which is Micah Mattingly for Ward 5. And we'll be getting together on the weekend for the next couple weekends, and then the couple weeks leading up to November 7th. It'll be every night. We'll even start a phone bank and an email blast as well.
Very good. Producer Chris Staten.
Yes, sir. Couple things. Obviously, I want to thank you each for running. I had a failed attempt 4 years ago. Jerry Walden beat me out. So I tried. Younger person did try. I was so bitter about it, I moved to Delaware County.
No, you just got married.
Well, yeah. Well, I was just about ready to get married, and so we needed a house. And Newcastle didn't have anything that met our requirements. Maybe you guys can fix that. Besides $350,000 houses that 2 average Americans can afford, right? So, but yeah, no, that's really all I have for you guys. Just thanks again for running. I know it's a lot of work. You
have any questions for him? This is your chance, man.
They're not going to represent me. They can't fix anything in Daleville. All I know is in Daleville, I'm allowed chickens.
I knew it.
So
Had to come in somewhere.
Almost made it.
Almost made it all the way through.
almost, but no.
Micah, are you a pro or anti-chicken candidate?
More research required.
This is
an
your toughest
acceptable
question
answer.
of the night.
I'll need to consult with my constituents before answering.
You're gonna pull them? You're gonna pull them?
Come on.
Man, oh
No,
man.
I would say,
It is a political race. boys.
here's the deal. My wife, she's an amazing cook, but I would say chicken's on the menu most nights. So if I have to pick a side, I would say I'm anti-chicken.
No chickens in the backyard.
No, sir.
No backyard poultry.
Terrible
What if that
representation.
identifies as a parakeet? Because those are legal. You can have a parrot. You can have a parakeet, but
Still farm animals,
you
right?
can't have a chicken. Just the government for you, man. All right.
You're welcome.
If you keep the chicken inside, like you do the parakeet, maybe.
Well, Mark,
You'll sign up.
Oh, I do. I will say I'm proud that you both have your paid for by on your signs. That's one thing that I am
he,
very
he's the
particular to.
disclaimer
It's a
stickler.
law.
Chris
You'd be
became
surprised.
a local legend reporting signs a few years ago.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I made quite a few candidates mad.
A lot of stickers are printed.
This
because of
isn't
Chris.
legal. $50 fine every time, buddy.
So
I already listen. As a former constituent of Mark's, I already know his answer on the chicken question because I pestered him about it for years.
I heard he softened on it.
It sounded like to me
If
that
it
he
comes,
was-
if it comes
I
forward,
can be
if,
bought.
if it comes forward again, he requires a bucket of chicken, a dozen eggs, and he will vote for the chicken.
It just took me leaving.
and the ordinance has to be ordinance BHOL dash whatever it is.
We could do that. Well, but Dakota's got some Koger in him too. So
It's true.
All right. So Mark, anything to plug? You doing the door-to-door thing?
Sure. That's the political way. I tell everybody, I'm not a politician. Period. I'm not. I am not.
Your political career's lasted longer than some people went to high school.
I know. I work for a living. Politicians don't work. They don't. I live here. I shop I shop here. Everything. And I'm a friend and I'm a neighbor. And if you got a problem, you know where to find me. And that's exactly the way city council should work in any town. You should know who your city council people are, and and everybody has said it forever. No matter where you live, I'll help you. No matter where you live, you don't have to live in my ward for me to help you. I'm a voice, and that is exactly what a city council person should be. At all times, you should be accessible. People should know where you live. And if they got a problem, they'll come to you. And believe me, over 15 years, that happens.
Do you find any trouble having a visible address on Main Street?
No, it's. But you know what the best part of living on Main Street is when people come from the city and they want a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign put in front of their house, or a stop sign, and I say, can you kind of sit on my front porch for 20 minutes? Just see how fast people go by my house.
Yeah,
and
it's going to do you a lot of good.
And I've learned you'll become a traffic expert on city council. People come to this town. Corey Murphy's told this story many times. They'll come and he'll take them a tour of the city, and they'll say, "Boy, there's a lot of stop signs in this town."
Yeah, no kidding.
So there's things like that we could work on to make the flow of traffic a little better and to keep the flow going better.
Shit, I mean, you guys took down all the stop lights and added more stop signs last year.
Yeah, that was awesome too. That was great.
No kidding.
That was great.
Have you thought about yield signs?
No. No. If we had room for a roundabout, we would probably just put one in just to say we had one. But there's no room.
You might contemplate it before State Road 3 happens, because I got a feeling Indiana Avenue and State Road and Main Street are getting ready to get really, really busy.
Really, really busy.
Really busy.
And we know it, Bundy. I mean, no, they're all going to, and that is going to be such a pain. And
the political class will helicopter in and out, but us working folks are going to have to drive on these roads.
But we talk about it. But can you imagine this? We need so much sympathy for those business owners to try to survive down there. It's going to be really, really tough for them over a 24-month period.
Yeah.
No matter what business they own.
Yeah, there is a legitimate storm coming for anybody that's not the corporate types, but if you're operating an independent business, a hair care place, an independent the park restaurant, Temptations, all of those folks are going to have they're gonna have a storm coming for sure.
That's why I like the idea, whether it's Clay Morgan or it's Greg, I like the idea of having some type of business coalition or some type of those businesses there on 3 having the ability to have an open dialogue and talk to try to figure out the next stages of work with NDOT to try to work the next stages so that
if they'll listen.
Yeah, but even if not just communicating with NDOT, but just as businesses trying to understand what the needs are going to be so that we can help one another as residents and as business owners trying to find solutions around once NDOT does what they're going to do, then how can we supplement that and figure out how we can best fix the situation best for our businesses.
May I have a question? On the 3 median, is it going to be grass?
Concrete curb.
Concrete?
6-inch.
Mm-hmm.
I got a 2010 Tundra. I ain't worried about the median.
It's gonna be real embarrassing when you high center that thing.
Ain't worried about
The
it.
whole town drives by and just laughs at you.
I'll be like, hello.
Didn't that guy run for city council?
I'm just gonna start tearing it all up. That's what I'm doing. I don't live here.
You know, I would like to say one thing. You know, Mike had talked about, you know, the young people and to be young. And I get that. I'm getting up there, but I'm still engaged in my community. You know, I have my grandson now has just started kindergarten. Both my children live here. I'm pretty engaged with the young people. I still, you know, referee, you know, junior high school basketball here. I see the kids grow up. I interact with them a lot. I'm not as hip as probably some people, but you know, I get where you're coming from, but I also will tell you that no matter what happens, make sure people stay engaged in the community and get young people involved. We ask for it all the time. And anytime there's meetings up there, it's always get the young people involved. Get the young people involved. Well, it's easier said than done, and it's hard. But stay active on it and keep people coming no matter what.
Mark says he's old, but he's still 30 years too young to be president. So.
Yeah.
Dakota, you got any final thoughts for me?
I do. I don't. We never formally announced or made a post or said anything on here, but like 2 months ago, we started live streaming to YouTube as well as Facebook, and I know that there's like a couple dozen people that have figured that out on their own, but we've never have made an attempt.
But if you're
to tell
anti-Zuck and want to be Team Google, you can just get this thing up on the YouTube.
right, and
On
it
the
stays
YouTubes.
there. It stays there, but if you go to the page, YouTube does a different thing with lives and what they do videos. If you click on our YouTube page, you will not see the most recent live. You will see the most recent video. You have to click the live streams tab, and then you will see all of the most recent live streams. But yeah, we never. I thought about it yesterday whenever I was looking at our YouTube channel, and I was like, we never announced that we were live streaming to YouTube now.
We just
So,
quietly did it.
Yeah.
It's what they call a soft rollout in the business. Special thanks again to our commercial providers, Weiland's Flowers and Slick Pickle Sanitation for helping us out with the candidate series again this year. It will continue next week with the clerk treasurer race. First time we've done that, so we have a contested clerk treasurer race. Really exciting time for the city of Newcastle, where you have 4 years ago there were 3 contested races in the entire city. And now you have up and down the ballot, you have people have things to vote for and opportunities, and hopefully these conversations over this 7 or 8 week period are good for the community. And I know Mark is benefiting from having Micah to run against, and otherwise he'd get a free pass and there would be nothing would happen here. So